the third lecture in the Design Media Arts lecture series, Expanded Design, which has been organized by Erki Hutamo and myself. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Ellen Lupton. Ellen once took me on a walk in New York with her 2 dogs, which might have been one of the most magical nights of my life. And seeing that this is Valentine's Day, it seems appropriate that Ellen is here to speak to us tonight. Ellen is the curator. Now I feel like I'm echoing. Is this working? Okay. Ellen is the curator of contemporary design at the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum Smithsonian Institution in New York City since 1992. She's also an educator who teaches at the Maryland Institute College of Art. Close? Okay. All right. She is also an editor, writer, graphic designer of numerous books on design, typography, industrial design, design culture, design history, and designing meaning. Among the numerous books she has written or contributed to are Design Culture Now, Design Writing Research, The ABCs of Triangle, Square, Circle, The Bauhaus and Design Theory. One of my favorites, The Bathroom, The Kitchen, and the Aesthetics of Elimination. Also, Mixing Messages, Mechanical Brides, Women and Machines from Home to Office, and many more. She's a partner in the studio Design Writing Research with her husband, J. Abbott Miller. Tonight's lecture is entitled Skin, Surface, Substance, and Design, which is also the name of an upcoming exhibition at the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum. I am absolutely delighted that Ellen is here to speak with us tonight. Please welcome Ellen Lupton.
All right, now can you hear me? You have to turn yours off because we'll interfere. Okay. So my talk is a preview of a show that opens on May 14th in New York called Skin, and it's an exhibition that looks at contemporary furniture, fashion, architecture, and media that responds to the surface in modern life, contemporary life. It's an international show, looks at material from 1997 to the present, created all over the world. And it's about the convergence of the natural and the artificial in design today. In the show I talk about a new design organics and the idea that designers are kind of, returning to organic imagery and metaphors in design, something that happened also in the 1940s and 50s, but that now it's a deliberately technological organics. And this relates to the culture that we live in, where we've seen in the last 5 years an incredible convergence of nature and technology in the scientific sphere with the mapping of the human genome, the beginning of tissue engineering or the creation of living human tissue, that those are enormous cultural events that design has responded to and reflects. And so I'll show you some things. Let's see. Well, that's skin. Science diagram. Your skin is dead and alive. The outside of your skin is the dead part, of course. So the part of you that you use to touch other people is dead and is constantly falling off. It's kind of gross, kind of a bummer, but hey, it's true that you really start dying the minute you start having skin, and skin is actually your very first organ, that the human organism as it generates in the womb begins as a kind of sac of skin, and that sac develops into the other organs of the body, ultimately the internal organs. So we sort of go from outside in. And always we've got this dead part that's showing. This is a quote from Mark Taylor, who wrote a great book called Hiding, which is sort of the Bible of skin theory, a great book that influenced a lot of designers and architects to think about the surface as something that is dead and alive, something that is inside and outside, something that defines us as who we are as organisms. It's our external face, as the way we communicate to people, the way we identify ourselves, the place where we locate our beauty, and it's also our dead part. In a way, the manner in which we relate to the whole culture of objects is like that. That objects, the chairs that you're sitting in, are dead, they're not living, and yet they're kind of an extension of your body. They enable you to do things that your body couldn't do. You could not possibly tolerate this lecture if you had to stand up for 45 minutes. So the chair is kind of an extension of your body, and it's a thing that is human and inhuman, something that we make, something that's part of our functioning as an organism, but is also other and exterior to us. In the exhibition, I sort of look at a number of the functions, the biological functions of skin, and then find objects that reflect that. So that if you look at, for example, padding and protection, that your skin is this garment, it's this protective structure that we carry around with us, that keeps our internal organs clean and dry and warm and so forth, regulates temperature. And if you think about fashion, that's sort of the basic function of fashion, not its aesthetic function, but its basic biological function, is to be better than our skin, is to make this kind of second skin, this enhanced skin that allows human beings to survive in all kinds of climates. So this is a jacket by Corpo Nove, which is an Italian sportswear company. It's called the Cooling System Jacket. And it's a jacket that has plastic tubing, over 50 meters of plastic tubing running through it, which carries cool water against your body and enables people to stay cool in extremely hot climates. It's a technology that was developed by the US military in the 1950s. As some kind of preparation for like a really hot bomb situation. It's also the technology used in spacesuits and also in fat suits, so that people don't suffocate when they're wearing these gigantic Hollywood fat suits. And now you can wear it in extreme sportswear. This is a raincoat made by CP Company, which is inflated. So this is in its uninflated form. And it's from a whole series where you can inflate the raincoat and it becomes other objects. I like to think of this as kind of extreme sportswear for urban life. If you're waiting for your Madonna tickets, or sitting through a really long lecture, you might want to have an inflatable coat. Or this is by IXILab. It's called Stool Pants. And this has to be inflated by a tube, by hand, so you create this kind of instant furniture that extends from your clothing, creating a little piece of refuge, a clean spot. Again, I think of this as survival gear for urban life, not for the wilderness, but for someone that always wants to have some seating with them. And this is from a whole series called Homeware, created by these young designers in Tokyo who have a partnership called IXILab that includes all kinds of multi-purpose fashion furniture. This is by Carla Murray, and it's called Technolust. And it's a prototype for an electronic gaming suit. Incredibly beautiful object, kind of Jean-Paul Gaultier styling, sort of lingerie with all this excellent pickup for the droopy parts of the body. And it's fitted with data ports that would connect you to someone else wearing a similar suit somewhere remote. So it's for kind of virtual sexual communication. And essentially the erogenous zones of the body become replaced with electronic data entry exchange devices. Maybe the other guy might be wearing the cooling suit because he's so hot. So those are all clothing that becomes a kind of technology, clothing which is designed to extend our capacity to survive, whether it's surviving weather or just surviving the trials and tribulations of urban life. Biotechnology obviously is something in the background of all this. And there's been incredible, developments in the biotechnology area during the last 5 years. I mentioned tissue engineering, which is a new profession which devotes itself to trying to develop living human tissue that can be used to replace failing tissue in people. And the most successful frontier of this is the engineering of artificial skin. And this is the first, human organ that can really be manufactured in labs and successfully sold on the marketplace. One of the companies is Aplograph, and this is an image from their product line. And the way this is done is that living human skin cells are harvested from the tips of infant foreskins, which come from circumcision procedures, not in a backyard bris, but in a hospital. And that living skin is then seeded into collagen structures in petri dishes, and it simply takes over. But that little bit of that boy's penis grows and grows and grows, and that one foreskin can be used to create 200,000 skin grafts that are shipped via FedEx to clinics around the globe and have a shelf life of 5 days, which is really remarkable. And so if you think about all that, genetic information from this one individual becoming skin grafts that travel in this kind of incognito way, and then become parts of other people's bodies, is pretty fantastic. And kind of scary, too. And I think a lot of the stuff that we think about related to biotechnology, the genome, cloning, tissue manufacturing, tissue, and whoops, this should not be going back. I need to reverse that slide, please. Can someone just reverse it? A lot of this stuff is kind of scary, and a lot of the journalism, a lot of the discussion of biotechnology relates to our fear of technology going awry, technology sort of getting ahead of us, technology creating monsters. This is a design for what's called a face robot, which is a robot that doesn't, manufacture things. It doesn't create automobiles or clean houses or something. It's a robot that's designed to respond to and express human emotion. Okay, so it's just a face, no body, and it's designed to, for example, smile in an appropriate situation. And the creators of it believe that this kind of robot will be necessary in the future when children and the elderly or the terminally ill will need to be taken care of by robots that exist there to provide emotional feedback. So someone else might change the diapers or empty the bedpan, but you have to have some kind of machine to do the smiling. And one of the problems with this prototype is that she smiles, but the smile stays too long. She doesn't go back to to a sort of normal state quickly enough, and it gives it kind of an eerie and scary feeling. So, so there's this kind of scary element, and I've been watching a lot of science fiction films because there's a lot of skin there, and a lot of skin being designed and conceived of in relationship to the things that we fear: the alien, the cyborg, the artificial creature. And I'm going to show you a brief montage of films that show this image of the alien and the cyborg from films from the last 10 years or so. Because that gives you a sense of the horror that we associate with this transformation of the world of objects. Okay. So I'd like to black out that slide briefly. And in order to make this montage, I wanted to get rid of all the soundtrack from the film so that all you're doing is seeing the visual aspect of it. And so an original musical score was created for me by my brother-in-law, who teaches at UCLA in the English department and Jewish studies. And some of you might know him. It's Kenneth Reinhard. Anyway, he's watching my daughter at the cafeteria, so he can't hear it. But this is beautiful original music that he wrote to kind of override the image of horror in these films. So I hope I have volume. Yeah. Have a little more volume. So I can get my slides back. Okay, so a lot of those images have to do with our fear of the alien erupting from within our own body. And I think the most horrific of those clips is the Sigourney Weaver image with this kind of rectilinear thing about to be birthed out of her abdomen. And to me, that is the most terrifying thing. And it's about this penetration of the artificial, the mechanical, the technological, as something truly evil that inhabits the interior self and comes out through the skin. The final image in that set of clips is, of course, from the film Brazil, where we have this sort of extreme obsession with plastic surgery and self-improvement, where eventually the woman simply disappears underneath this huge cast. Plastic surgery and dermatological procedures are another thing that is mushroomed in incredible ways in the last 5 years, really in the same period of this revolution in our understanding of the biological body. There's also been this huge revolution in skin care and skin enhancement procedures, and it's something driven partly by demand, but also the technology feeding the demand. Just last week, Botox was approved by the FDA. Everybody knows, you guys are too young to worry about Botox, but Botox, you get an injection of the microorganism that causes botulism, and you get a controlled amount of it in your facial muscles, and it prevents you from frowning, and therefore it helps erase and prevent future wrinkles instantly, painlessly. Okay, and so the FDA just approved the use of this, a drug that has already been being used in dermatological offices since 1997 for cosmetic purposes, with a huge popularity. Now they have permission to advertise it on television. Okay, that's what the FDA approval does for it, and it's really a miracle, and I sure know what I want for Easter. Okay. This is Cindy Jackson. She's sort of a minor celebrity in the UK. She's someone who's had over 20 surgical and non-surgical procedures done to her entire body with the goal of wanting to become a living Barbie doll. So that's her before and that's her after. And she's all kinds of bone reconstruction and changing the length of her whatever this bone is to get better proportions and so on, and lots of stuff to her face and to her skin. So we live in a time where more and more people, men as well as women, people in their 20s as well as people in their middle age, are willing and eager to change the outward appearance, to change their skin, to enhance their improve their appearance. That people are less embarrassed to do that, less embarrassed about embracing the artificial. So this culture of surface, this obsession with the outer layer, is also part of what's going on in design right now, that we embrace that kind of externality in our own body as well as in the things that we buy and use. In a way, if you look at the history of the design profession, the industrial design profession, it's involved itself with creating skins. The alien within the slide projector. Kind of want to go back. Just once. I don't know why I keep doing that. Raymond Loewy was one of the creators of industrial design in the 1920s and 30s, and he was kind of a skin doctor of objects. He would take mechanical goods, such as the cream separator, which was used in farms to make butter, and he would create a skin for the mechanical object. And that skin was streamlined, it was curved, it was made by putting clay around those working parts of the machine. And he promoted himself as a kind of plastic surgeon of objects with these great before and after shots, showing the object when it was naked and it had no skin, and then its improvement. It's becoming more like us, less like a machine and more like an organism. And that's continued to be an important model for how industrial designers work, that they are creating an interface, a physical interface for technology by changing the surface. This is an incredibly important design by Mario Bellini from the early 70s, and it's in the Cooper Hewitt collection. And he took an adding machine manufactured by Olivetti and wrapped around it a rubber skin so that the mechanical buttons are like nipples coming through this rubber sort of flesh-toned skin. So it was the same principle that Loewy had innovated, but now he was trying to take a skin that was even more like us, that was soft and responsive. This is by IDEO, and it's using a fabric called Electex, which is a conductive fabric that is able to convey information, electrical impulses through its entire surface. So now the buttons on these keyboards and remote controls are not mechanical buttons. They're simply indentations raised into the surface of this electrical material. And so the skin itself of the product is now intelligent and responsive and conveys location and pressure of human touch, just the way our skin does. And here's some of that fabric without the body behind it. It's the buttons and so forth without the physical body. Empty skins, but they're skins that think and work and communicate. Not think really, but communicate. More soft technology. This is a design by Emma Quickenden, a young industrial designer from the UK. And it's a prototype for a soft radiator. She says, you know, radiators are supposed to keep you warm, and why is it such an ugly, hard piece of technology? So she's proposing to create a radiator made out of hard metal tubes that are contained within a soft rubber skin. And she calls the design hot water bottle, and its shape is modeled after a hot water bottle. And it's a very sexy object. It's trying to create something that is generally hard and ungiving, to try to give it a body, give it a skin, give it something that's soft, make it something that you would want to touch. And yet it's also clinical. It comes from this kind of medical realm. It's a hot water bottle. Okay, so the radiator may be your girlfriend, but your girlfriend is a nurse. Okay, and I found that really striking in looking at a lot of this contemporary design, that there's this eroticism to it. It's about an embrace and presentation of the body and an attempt to make objects like our body, and often in very sexy ways, but it's this kind of clinical latex-covered eroticism, this medical eroticism. So Tonita Abeta is a designer in San Francisco, and she's creating a line of wearable condoms and wanting to create condoms that fit over the whole body. This is a female condom that are fashion objects. And she wants to make, you know, the apparatus of safe sex into something that's very sexy and fashionable, and therefore more desirable. And so she's very literally addressing the skin and the kind of clinical approach that by necessity we approach skin that way. Oh, that's upside down, but we'll leave it. This is Matthew Malsch, who's a designer and artist working in Tokyo, and he has created a series of latex garments, which instead of clinging precisely to the shape of the body, they have extensions and protrusions. They connect two bodies to each other, or they have weird kind of hanging pockets from them. So instead of creating this technological skin that completely matches the body, they suggest a kind of excess. and a kind of grossness, What do you need all those bags for? This is a piece of furniture that's part of that line where there's these kind of weird tubes coming out of the top of this stool. So it's erotic and translucent and related to sexuality, but it's also clinical. So we think about the image of the designer as a kind of skin doctor. This is from a series of photographs by Margie Geerlinks, who's a Dutch photographer who creates these really alarming digital images of human bodies that have become skins, that have become kind of empty bags. And this is from one pair that will be featured in the exhibition, where you have this figure of the artist sewing a body in his sewing machine. But he's kind of the artist, the doctor, in the white coat. And it's a very terrifying image. I mentioned organicism, and I'll just return to that, and the kind of theme that that the designers have long been interested in, which is how to use the technologies of mass manufacture to create a modern design aesthetic that also reflects nature and the body. And of course, this is the great chair by Charles Eames from the late 40s. And it's an ongoing theme in design since then, how to bring together metal and curved wood to create an object that reflects the body. This is from the Skin Show. It's called the Eva chair. And just calling it Eva is obviously provocative and suggesting a kind of erotic text. And it's this beautiful plane of curved red plywood floating there in an armature of metal tubing. But the detailing on the chair brings this clinical language up into contrast with the beautiful red body. So for example, the armrests are like on a walker or on sports gear. They're very not sexy, right? So you have this like great curving nude in the middle, but she's supported by this kind of medical apparatus, or the extreme extension of that little protective black tip at the bottom, which on most furniture you don't even see. It's just hidden underneath the leg. But here the designers have expressed it and have emphasized that protective sheath of plastic at the bottom of the furniture. Or in architecture, the term skin has been used for the whole 20th century to talk about the dematerialized wall, the glass wall of modern architecture. There's a great factory design by Walter Gropius from 1913 where structure and skin become this beautiful transparent cylinder revealing to us what's happening inside the building. And architects continue to deal with skin and with creating surfaces of buildings with glass that are extremely light. But now there's an interest in making that skin material, and making it dense, and making it semi-opaque. So this is a building where the skin is actually multi-layered. And instead of seeing directly through it, it becomes a kind of screen for projecting images. It becomes this glowing, soft box, a thick skin, not a thin skin. Oh, and that's upside down. This is a proposal for a portable, disposable skyscraper by FTL Happold, and it's made completely from existing building components and building products like portable toilets and portable elevators and scaffolding. The entire thing can be loaded onto 4 semi-trucks, rolled onto a site and erected, and the wall is made out of fabric, so it's kind of the ultimate tent, okay? The ultimate garment that's become a building. It was designed in 2001 before September 11th, but it has incredible resonance now when you think about the need that a city might have for instant kind of emergency architecture. And this is a firm that created morgues after September 11th in Lower Manhattan, tent-structured morgues. Or Herzog and Demeron, the Swiss architects. This is one of their incredible buildings where the skin is incised with photographic images. So the concrete and the glass both have photographs on them. Some of the photographs are transparent and some opaque. And it makes this incredible image, especially at night, where you see the contrast between these two surfaces. Your skin is basically a bag for carrying around your stuff. So in one part of the show, we look at skin as a vessel and look at some really beautiful decorative objects that take on this embodied attitude. For example, this pair of vases by Nigel Coates, made out of glass, but as glass it's become kind of heavy and pendulous. And this pair of objects that sit on the table and kind of knock against each other like breasts or testicles, and have this kind of drooping, hanging, heavy quality to them. Or there's a vase by Marcel Wanders, it's called the egg vase, and the mold for it was made by stuffing a condom with eggs. And then that was burned away, and that becomes the mold for this beautiful white porcelain vase. So again, the idea of the medical and the erotic, the condom and the eggs, this image of fertility gone mad, which is another great technological aspect of our life right now. The condom, this object that's meant to prevent fertility, becomes this kind of bloated with growth, bloated with all this potential life in white porcelain. We also look a lot at lighting in the exhibition, and there's a way in which something that glows seems to us alive, and yet living things don't usually glow. Okay, and so it's this kind of alien life. And we're looking at light fixtures that are soft, that you can touch, light fixtures that are filled with salt or gel, and are these kind of soft, dull objects, like these examples here. Or this beautiful series of lights that appears to be oozing out of the ceiling or oozing out of your wall. Again, hanging there like a bag of skin, a vessel of skin. Or this fantastic light bulb, you can buy this at Urban Outfitters for about $12.95. It's a standard light bulb that's festooned with these dollops of silicone. It's just pieces of glue stuck right onto the light. Screw it into any lamp, any IKEA piece of crap that you have, and suddenly you have this alien living thing that's kind of growing structures. I'm going to show you another little clip from a movie. In my first set of clips, I showed a little bit from the film Videodrome, which was made around 1985, starring the young James Woods, who looks really as weird then as he is now. And it's a movie that reflects our horror of inanimate objects coming alive. And in the film, a video cassette and a television become living things, infused with a kind of horrific and predatory female sexuality. So we see James Woods breathing a lot of excitement over this heaving plastic and glass surfaces. So I'm going to show you a little bit of an extended clip from that with the original soundtrack, and I think you'll find it more funny than scary.
Who's behind it? What do they want?
That's the young Deborah Harry.
You. Come to me. Come to Nikki. Come on. Don't make me wait. Please.
These are the kind of special effects where you don't ask, how'd they do that?
I want you, Max. You. Come on.
I love that.
Come to me now. Come to Nikki. Don't keep me waiting. Please. Please.
That is so weird. Okay. All right, so I want my slides back. I'm almost done. Okay. So that idea of the membrane that is coming alive and that is gross because it shouldn't be alive is part of some really beautiful but scary contemporary design objects. This is a chair by Jurgen Bay, and it's from a series that he created by taking existing furniture that's profoundly human, vernacular wooden furniture. It's so limb-like, it's so related to our body, it's something so intimate. These are chairs that we all know or own or have sat in. And he wraps them inside of a synthetic, stretchy fabric, a material that's actually used in airplane construction, to create something where now the bones, that's the natural part, that familiar chair is something that we know, pressing out through this grossly artificial membrane. And in many of the pieces, two pieces are combined into one, and it's sort of a dysfunctional lover's embrace, or two bodies bound together like hostages inside this skin that's soft and resilient and natural in a way, but it's a skin that this whole meaning is about its fakeness, its engineered quality, its alienness. This is a garment by Walter van Beirendonck, a Belgian fashion designer, where it's a vinyl suit bubbled with these protrusions, this kind of big pimples sort of things, or boils or whatever. He says they're dragon scales, okay, scales on a futuristic dragon. To me, it's like a toxic process erupting from inside. And on the runway, he had the models wear gas masks. It's like apocalyptic party clothes. It's this really happy, shiny red suit that's bubbling over with something coming from within. Or these are two cabinet designs. And in the installation for the show, I have this kind of futuristic bathroom set up with these wild kind of furnishings and objects and dildos and Prada eye cream and stuff. It's really just what you'd like at home. This is a cabinet where the door is latex, and so when objects are inside the cabinet, they press through the door and become slightly present. And the other design by Jan Melis, it's a stainless steel cabinet where the door is made from magnetized rubber. So in order to open the cabinet, you put your finger in the hole and pull down and peel back the skin, and that's how you get in. So instead of a conventional door with a hinge that clangs and bangs, you have this soft rubber skin. This is a beautiful, simple design. Or this is a table by Paolo Ulian, which looks like a normal plywood tabletop, but the table peels up, the skin peels up, and then the table becomes a bench. So it's another multi-purpose object, and one in which the surface, which we expect to be hard and permanent, it actually has this flexibility and the skin-like quality. Or this is a table by Karam Rashid where the top is made from a heat-sensitive plastic. So if you put a hot coffee cup or lean your elbows on the table, the color changes and so reflects what's going on. It's a skin that reacts to use, immediate use. This is a piece of architecture by Shulam Kolaton and William McDonald. And we're going to actually have a real scale prototype, a part of the wall in the exhibition. And I've always loved the section drawings for this building because they make me think of the human nose. And the nose is one of the parts of your body, and I could mention a few others, but I won't, where it's hard to tell where skin begins and ends. Like you've got hair inside your nose, right? And that's a basic function of, all your skin has hair on it. In fact, hair is part of your skin. It's more of the stuff, the dead stuff that we make each day. And this section makes me think of the nose and the kind of flowing of the exterior surface into the inside of the building, just the way our skin kind of folds into our mouth and other parts. And it's stuff that you can touch and feel, but it's inside your body. Which brings me to some other noses. This is some tissue engineering. A scientist at MIT who's now at University of Pennsylvania has been working with trying to create noses by taking a synthetic polymer and then seeding that with living cells, cartilage cells, to create an actual tissue nose that you can squish. And they're completely white, which is weird, like paper white. And that brings me to my final clip, which deals with cloning. And of course, we're now in the age of cloning, and it's only a question of when, not if, a human being will be cloned. And one of the parts of bodies that people save, hoping to recreate loved ones or self, is skin, because skin is a very simple organ that contains all of the DNA to describe a complete human being, but it's a lot easier than saving a heart. It's like this little bit. I'm going to show a clip from a really good movie now that's also funny, but intentionally funny, Sleeper. And for those of you who are too young to have ever seen this movie, it's this great science fiction movie that really, and the art direction is fantastic from the early 70s. It really created that whole look that now all the lounges and clubs look like that. And this movie really did it. But in the movie, Woody Allen is just a guy from the 70s who got frozen. And in the year 2050, he gets thawed out, and he discovers that he's living in this world where everybody's happy, everybody's rich, people have robotic dogs and virtual sex, and it's the most terrible, dysfunctional society you could imagine. So there's an underground, and he joins the underground, attempting to overthrow this horrific prosperity and boredom. And he and Diane Keaton are attempting to interrupt a cloning procedure where the nose of the dictator is all that's left, and the people in this happy, prosperous land don't know that. And so the scientists are going to try to recreate his body from his nose. At the time, of course, that was considered a kind of fantasy idea. And now, of course, you know you can create an entire creature from much less than the nose. In fact, maybe just from the foreskin of a little boy's penis, you could recreate an entire person, because all you need is a few cells. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with a very nice little clip from Sleeper about the future.
I believe that this is going to be a very difficult cloning job.
Yes, cloning, you idiot, not croning.
Cloning!
Well, what is your opinion, Doctor? Should we proceed with the cloning or should we postpone?
Yes, I believe that we should go ahead with the cloning.
Excuse me. I have to have a conference with the doctor. Doctor, for a second, if you'll just come over here. I just want to speak to you about that.
What do you mean? Go ahead with the cloning. Well, what are we supposed to do? What do you mean? I don't know how to clone. You're crazy. I do something.
Of course. I'm glad you put it to me in that fashion. And now, if you have, let me have these lobster please. Thank you very much. And now, what you have here, I've diagnosed the entire situation, and I think what we're dealing with basically is a nose. I think we're all in agreement on that. I have a little beggar right here, and what you want basically
I love the operating
is
table
a
shaped
whole
like
entire
Helvetica
person connected to that
Man.
nose, right? Otherwise, you get your money back. Now, did you want me to leave room for a mustache? Because there's a nice area in there, which It's clever. It's clever. What the doctor is doing here, we're placing down the garments because we're going to make an attempt to clone the patient directly into his suit. And that way, he'll be completely dressed at the end of the operation. It's first in cloning, and then we could all just get the hell out of here and hang around the cloning room while he suits up. Now, the cell structure has been checked. Thank you so much. And now, I'll just take my mask, if you don't mind, and I'll strap it on to my face. And if you'll excuse me for 1 second while I give the patient a quick nostrilectomy. This is it. Keep your fingers crossed.
Something's going wrong. There's been a current break in the life support system.
What I think we should do.
What's that you've got under your mask?
Pardon me? Under my mask? Nothing. Why? Does it look excessively vulnerous?
He's got the nose. He's got the nose under his nose. He's got the nose.
Right. Nobody move or I shoot your president. Come on. We're getting out of here. Don't come near me. Don't come near me. I'm warning you. He gets it right between the eyes.
He'll do it. He'll do it. I've seen him shoot a nose.
Please be careful.
My sucker. You don't realize that you've been dealing with one of the greatest minds you've ever seen.
Yeah, and his isn't so bad either.
Yeah. Don't come near us. Just get out of here now.
He's bluffing. He wouldn't shoot the nose.
Bluffing, am I? Okay, clowns. You asked for it.
So thank you very much. I could take a couple questions if people have questions. Want to know my dermatologist's phone number? I'm actually 300 years old. Yeah?
Hi. In this, I guess, exhibition, you cast an extremely wide net. And so you have vessels as well as these other categories. But I think in all cases, what really holds it together is an idea that the skin is somehow contingent on something else, that it's held up by a skeleton, that it's something from inside is depressing on the surface, or indeed that it's a bag and it has no strength, but it just contains these things. But I would argue that maybe a few of the items aren't that. And most notably the chairs you showed.
The Jurgen Bay back-to-back
And the Eames chair. The Eames chair. Because I believe that it was very, very important to the designers that there was no separation between skin and structure in that case. And that Eames made a great deal out of the fact that there was no surround to the material and so on, that it was held up like so, and it could stand by itself and support a body. And in the same way, the McDonald House, if you fall back to Saarinen and his experiments with, all the experiments with the sprayed concrete, it was the same idea that there was no actual difference between skin and structure. They were one and the same. And so I wonder if that subject came up or what.
Well, yeah, there's a number of objects in the exhibition where skin is structure. For example, some chairs made out of folded polypropylene where it's an absolutely paper-thin surface, but because of the way it's folded, it becomes structurally strong, just like origami or a paper box for that matter. And certainly, yes, the Raybould House has to do with creating a surface that, because of its curvature, becomes strong and isn't simply wrapped around something. So there's a lot of objects where there's this structural component. In fact, for a while, I was calling the show Skin, Surface, Structure, and Design. But I felt it was too limiting because in many cases, the skin isn't structural. It's pattern, it's about image, it's about something anti-structural. So that's certainly a theme and an idea that runs through the exhibition. We're showing a rowing shell that's made from composite materials that are have this wonderful curvature to them. So the whole thing weighs like 10 pounds, but it's this enormously strong object, and it's all skin. There's no skeleton. It really is a shell that takes on this great strength. So I don't pick that out as a separate category. It kind of runs throughout the exhibition in the various parts of it. But it's not exclusive because there's also laminate materials and things that are really just a skin that don't have a structural element. So yeah, with the Eames chair, obviously the curve is part of what makes the plywood strong, as well as giving it its embodied quality. So yeah, absolutely.
Time for
Yeah.
one more question. Ruth? You want to speak into this?
Hi, I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to what you think is the impetus behind all the representations of biotechnology as being more horrific. There's so much cultural criticism about the impact of the Genome Project and other things, and it always tends to be more towards that cautioning voice, and even in the images that you showed in the designs. So I'm just wondering if you could just address that in a broad way, what you think the impetus for that is and why there isn't more towards
just
the
because
other.
it's more interesting to people to be scared and to be worried about it. I think the whole cloning thing and embryonic stem cells and that wherever there's controversy, people are very excited about it in a way that simply hearing about the medical value of these technologies doesn't make for such exciting journalism, you know. So I think, you know, people are always excited and afraid of technology. And I think with the engineering of the body, I think that the fear is especially strong because it's so close to us. You know, the engineering of the food supply and the genetic altering of species. It's so, you know, on the one hand, it has all these great uses, but that's not as intriguing to people as the potential danger of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just curious if, you know, there is a disproportionate amount of that fascination, and I was just curious what you thought about it. Thank you.
I think in the design, you know, the objects that I'm showing, you know, they're very beautiful. It's not like they're horror films. They are, you know, beautiful, magical things. But they also, I think, convey a little bit of the fear, which I think is very interesting in design, when it isn't simply, oh, it's gorgeous, but that there's this element of the sinister. And I think, you know, most great art has an element of the sinister and is not purely certain about the benefits of change and technology and so forth. There's one more question over here, too, somewhere. Yeah.
I'm curious if your exhibit explores a trend that I've noticed as an engineer, an attempt to sort of have anti-skin membranes, in the sense of trying to expose the inner workings, going against the tradition of covering all the mechanical, electrical things up, but rather trying to expose it. And I guess the most popular version is the Pompidou Center in Paris, where everything is, you know, inside out. But on a more mundane level, with Palm Pilots that are with clear plastic, cell phones that are with clear plastic. I even remember in my long time ago with Hewlett-Packard, this realization with industrial designers that people like to see the inner workings of things moving, like with printers and plotters, in an attempt to try to design it so that that's exposed as much as possible to have a Nito effect or what have you. I'm just curious whether that dimension of skin is...
I confess I'm not really looking at that, but I've been trying to think about what my next show will be. And I thought it would be great to do a show called Bones that would really be about that. And, you know, Jim Hoberman and these, you know, expanding mechanical objects, that Hoberman sphere that's a toy, but now he has this huge arch at the Olympics, and it's a skeleton. It's an incredible mechanical skeleton. He's genius. I thought it'd be really interesting to do a project that was truly anti-skin and was about these examples of rejecting surface and creating objects that are really about joints and expansion like that. Would be great, but I don't know. I got to get through this one first. Okay, one more question.
I was struck by the one surface that had the charge all over the surface, and I mean that one was the most disconcerting to me, as opposed to the chairs that were covered, because it seemed like I could tell where one structure began and the other one began and where they came together, as opposed to the charge and everyth's all, you know, it's all finally merged together.
It's all listening. It's all.
But do you have any kind of opinion on if the skin is, who's winning?
I don't know.
Is it pushing out further, or it seems to be pushing down further and masking more than...
More illusory, less honest, or less...
Well, yeah.
Well, I think skin is certainly winning in the sense of, you know, I think we really do live in a culture of skin right now. That surfaces and and including the way we approach our own skin. I don't know that it's all a bad thing.
No, it's not.
You know, I think a lot of it's very beautiful, and I certainly.
An example of that would be the motorcycle. They used to be all, everything was exposed. Now they're covering it up with plastic, and it looks a little different. But you know, in the aircraft, when I was young, what did they do? They had a skeletal structure, and they covered it with a skin. And then the monocoque people came
Right,
along,
that's another structural skin.
and
Right.
there isn't any skeleton, there's just skin. And that's pretty interesting. They tried it in automobiles, but you know, it was too vulnerable.
Right, and then once in a while the tail of an airplane falls off.
And we're talking
You're like, I could use a little skeleton. All right, I think that'll be the last of the questions, and
Thank you very much.
it was really fun to be here.